What up, y'all? This is Tracy from Nerd Squish, and today we're going to be talking about Halloween Horror Nights and its connections to Louisiana. Alright, y'all, it is Halloween Horror Nights announcement season. But, I don't have any announcements or spec maps or anything to really talk about right now. We're in that waiting period of just, when is information? When is news and official announcements? When is it all gonna drop? I don't know. I'm impatiently waiting. I have a Halloween Horror Night state of mind. It's all I can think about. It's all I want to talk about. I'm living and breathing Halloween Horror Nights. So since I can't exactly talk about official news, I was like, you know what? Let's nerd out about one of my favorite events in the best way that I know how, and that is to talk about my home state of Louisiana. At this point, you're probably like, okay, where are you going with this, Tracy? Because it's an event in Florida? What does this have to do with Louisiana? A lot. I feel like every year that I have gone to this event, I turn into that meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Here I come. Oh, here I come.
As I'm noticing hints of Louisiana all over the place. And maybe it's just because that's where I'm from, but it has always stuck out to me. Now, with 32 years of this event, you start to see the same themes, the same locations. You have things like Cary, Ohio, or things like an abandoned subway of New York. Things like that you see again and again. Now, what's interesting to me is this event takes place in Florida, or at least the specific one that I'm gonna cover, as I've never been to Hollywood and don't know much about it. But the event in Orlando, we're in Florida, and to my knowledge, there really hasn't been a house or a scare zone that's specifically like, okay, we're following something in Florida, whether it be real or imagined, which is kind of interesting. Especially considering that the state of Florida has a lot of themes and aesthetics that could be used at the event. So why does Louisiana keep popping up at Halloween Horror Nights?
Why are you so obsessed with me?
I guess it's because Louisiana is a state known for its haunted locations, voodoo, and vampires. Not to mention some of the most striking and memorable architecture and graveyards in the United States. I guess you could say it's kind of an obvious pick for a spooky setting, right? So today I want to take the time to nerd out and dive into the history of Louisiana at Halloween Horror Nights. Before we get into all the spooky details, if you're new here, this is Nerd Squish, where we take everything spooky and we take everything nerdy and we squish it all together. So if you like horror movies, Halloween Horror Nights, and pop culture, definitely hit that subscribe button so you can see more videos from us in the future. Our history is going to start off in the year 1997 with the house Tomb of Terrors. This was one of the 4 houses featured that year, and it was located in the earthquake queue. It took you on a terrifying journey into a New Orleans cemetery as you go deeper and deeper into the world of vampires, mutants, and chainsaw-wielding maniacs. So as you're walking through this house, you're trapped in a dilapidated New Orleans funeral home, and you fall into an open grave, and then you discover all the evil things lurking underground. I absolutely love this concept and am so sad that I didn't get to walk through this house. And I'm even sadder that it was 1997, so there's not really video footage of this. You know, we're spoiled these days because even if you can't make it to the event, you can watch these beautiful 4K videos of the whole house. So it's like you're there, but 1997, we weren't that lucky. From what it sounds like with this concept, this is undeniably New Orleans. We have our signature cemeteries, vampires, and dilapidated buildings, which is just everything. Everything over there is dilapidated and abandoned and run down. Gotta love it. Next, we're gonna jump into the year 2000, where our very first original icon links himself to the swamps of Louisiana. Jack the Clown performed in Dr. Oddfellow's traveling Carnival of Thrills. He was also wanted for the abduction and disappearance of several small children throughout the southern United States. Now, the police were on his tails and Jack was freaking out, so what does he do? He confides in his boss and tells him what's going on. When Jack confided in Dr. Oddfellow for murdering 13 children, Dr. Oddfellow wasn't so sympathetic because he was actually wanted by the police himself. So naturally, he had Jack murdered. Years later, the Carnival of Thrills had all its bits and pieces acquired throughout the United States, all over the place, right? And then a documentary crew comes out in the 80s, and they're making a little documentary about the dark rides of America. This takes them down to an abandoned junkyard in Louisiana, where they find none other than Jack's decaying corpse and the bodies of his 13 victims. And then the van that was taking these bodies to the coroner's office disappeared into the swamps of Louisiana on Halloween night. Which, there's a lot of things in those Louisiana swamps. Who knows? Bodies, alligators, the hopes and dreams of everybody that lives in that state and is just surviving. So this is super interesting because, Jack is the original icon. He is the face, if you will, of Halloween Horror Nights. So the fact that his origin story lies within the state of Louisiana is super, super interesting and fun to me, especially considering that he was found in an abandoned junkyard and you have these dark rides. It just brings about this imagery of the abandoned Six Flags that is left in New Orleans. Next, we're going to take it to 2010 with the house Zombie-geddon. Now, Halloween Horror Nights is no stranger to zombies, whether it be things like The Walking Dead or their own original zombie stories. So this one was super interesting because it takes place in a facility that's overrun by the undead. And it's because there was this power failure, because in this world, they're controlling the undead with these collars that keep them in this docile state. So when power failure happens, all hell breaks loose. But I know what you're thinking. What does this have to do with Louisiana? Upon exiting this house, you're dropped into a scare zone that explains the cause for the power failure. A Mardi Gras float has crashed into the power lines outside the building, allowing the zombies to escape and infect parade goers. The Zombie Gras scare zone, located in San Francisco, was a unique experience. It was a Mardi Gras parade gone wrong. You're walking among the undead infected by the North American zombie infestation as they search for their next meal. And let's face it, you don't have to stretch your imagination much for this one. Most parade goers are pretty zombie-like, okay? First-hand experience, I can say that. After an entire season of eating, drinking, and partying as hard as we possibly can, we're kind of all just stumbling around trying to make it to the next day. And we're all just praying that that box of Popeyes is gonna help us sober up so we can make it to work. I absolutely love this idea of a house and a scare zone being connected so this immersive experience can continue. We may have seen themes that kind of connect, but they're not necessarily connected, if you get what I'm saying. So the idea that you think, okay, I'm out, this story's over, but wait, there's more, I love that, and I want more of that in this event. Halloween Horror Nights is already such an immersive experience, and this just kind of takes it up a notch. And I gotta tell y'all, I laughed when doing research on this particular scare zone because, you look up on the fandom sites and they'll list all the details, especially with the newer houses, right? And in this one, they had a list of all the different scare actors that you see in this particular zone. So one of them was listed as Trombone Zombie. But my New Orleans self read Trombone Shorty. So I was like, whoa, Trombone Shorty was featured in this scare zone? And I was like, no, Tracy. That says Trombone Zombie. Get it together. Next, we're taking it to the year 2014. And this one's super interesting because it's got a little drama with it. Which, we can all say we don't like drama. But secretly we're all like Michael Jackson eating the popcorn, just living for it. One of the 4 scare zones was Bayou of Blood, located in Central Park. In this one, you ventured into a Louisiana bayou where you were witness to a sacrifice of an unwilling victim. After watching videos of this scare zone, to me, it kind of reminded me of what we had last year with Conjure the Dark, where, okay, you can walk through and have one experience, but if you catch it at the right time, you get this whole show that you become a part of. The main character was a voodoo queen, and you followed her quest for ultimate power as her and her zombie servants took the blood of an innocent. Voodoo is synonymous with New Orleans and first came to Louisiana with enslaved West Africans who merged their religious rituals and practices with those of the local Catholic population. So about that drama, this scare zone got canceled just in the middle of the event. It didn't even make it to October. You could only catch it really in September. Now in the cancel culture of today, I guess this really wouldn't be so shocking, but this is 2014. what's going on here? Why did this get canceled? There's obviously several different accounts on why this scare zone got canceled. Some say that conservatives complained about the evil tone of the whole show. Some say it was a crowd control situation. And there was a real-life voodoo priestess who was offended by using a living religion as horror entertainment. Now, Universal officials claim that this was removed just because of the lack of scares. And as far as all the different sides that may have been offended, if you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen, okay? This is a horror event. It's gonna get spooky. So even though Bayou of Blood was canceled, it was revived in 2017 when it received a sequel house called Dead Waters located in Soundstage 24. In this house, you entered a pestilent swamp that oozes evil and is the hellish realm of the Voodoo Queen. Now the coolest thing about this house was the facade was a sunken riverboat. And it looked so real. It was like, thinking about it and how beautiful it was, I kind of want to cry. I remember this house fondly as it was the first year I ever went to the event and it made a really big impression on me. It really made you feel like you were in a sunken riverboat. You know, you see this boat that's kind of crooked and just sinking. So when you walk into the house, you're walking in a hallway and you're kind of ankled. So you're like, am I really in a riverboat in the swamp right now? What's going on? It was fantastic. So even though they canceled Bayou of Blood, the Voodoo Queen lives on in one of my favorite houses of all time. In 2019, we had another one of my favorite houses with Graveyard Games that was located in the Parade Warehouse. The sets and effects in this house were amazing, and even after multiple walkthroughs, it still captivated me. And got quite a few good scares. In this one, you enter a cemetery at night where disrespectful teens have awakened vengeful spirits. But where's the Louisiana connection? So if you dive further into the story that Halloween Horror Nights put out for this particular house, it states that it took place in Ascension Parish Cemetery. Ascension Parish is a parish located in Louisiana consisting of the two cities Donaldsonville and Gonzales. For those that don't know, Louisiana has parishes instead of counties because Louisiana was Roman Catholic while under the rule of France and Spain, and the boundaries dividing the territories coincided with church parishes. So in 1807, territorial legislature adopted the term. Anyway, back to the story of this house. Now the rest of this is just like a story set up by Halloween Horror Nights. It has no truth to it that I know of, but the Ascension Parish Cemetery was built by Evangeline Albright. All she wanted when she was alive was a child, but unfortunately she couldn't bear any. When she died, she was buried in the middle of the cemetery, which just so happened to have a lot of children buried inside of it, so she essentially became the mother to all the dead children that were buried there. And because of the stories of the glowing mother ghost, teens were going to the cemetery all the time to try to catch a glimpse of it, and they defiled it, obviously, and that's how we got to the story that you experience when you walk through this house. Now we're gonna take it to 2020, and this isn't specific necessarily to Halloween Horror Nights, but an unveiling that happened in the Universal Studios park. After Blaine Kern passed, Universal Studios unveiled a tribute to the New Orleans legend. Kern designed and created Mardi Gras floats and props with his company Kern Studios for decades in New Orleans and in the Orlando parks, earning him the title Mr. Mardi Gras. You can find this tribute in a second-story window of the Pantages Theater. This spot is perfect considering that it overlooks the Universal Parade route, where floats designed by Kern Studios have rolled for more than 25 years during their Mardi Gras and Halloween events. So even in the afterlife, Kern is watching the good times roll. So next time you're in the park and you decide to cool off at the horror makeup show, make sure you look to the right and give a little wave to Mr. Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras floats from Kern Studios were first seen in the parks in 1996 for their Mardi Gras celebration. But many of their floats and props have been seen at Halloween Horror Nights, such as the earlier mentioned Zombie Gras Scare Zone. Most recently, the company's work could be found in the Sweet Revenge Scare Zone that was featured in 2022. So in this scare zone, the Major Sweets Candy Company made this candy that turned all the children in the town into crazed killers. Now this was a huge scare zone in the New York area of the park, and it featured both floats and props from Kern Studios. The scare zone featured multiple stacks of pumpkins wearing witchy hats, a graveyard-themed float with a gargoyle at the front, a witchy-themed float, and a float specifically themed after the Major Sweets candy company. So there you have it. That's the history of Halloween Horror Nights and its connections to Louisiana. I've always loved seeing little reminders of my home state in the park, but now that I've moved to Texas, I appreciate it more than ever. And the good news is that they have only touched the surface of haunted Louisiana, both fictional and non-fictional. So here's to hoping that we see hints of the swamp at Halloween Horror Nights 32. And I'm curious, as somebody that's maybe not from Louisiana, have you guys noticed any of this? Or maybe is your state or your hometown featured in the event? Like, let me know in the comments, because I'm very curious if other people have these experiences of like, ooh, I know that, ooh, I know that, and probably the person next to you has no idea what you're even talking about. I hope y'all enjoyed this video and nerding out with me about my home state of Louisiana and its connections to Halloween Horror Nights. If you did enjoy the video, give it a big ol' thumbs up, it really helps out the channel. And if you want to see more videos and updates on Halloween Horror Nights 32, definitely hit that subscribe button and don't forget to hit that notification bell so when new videos hit the channel, you'll be notified. Because every announcement, every spec map, we're gonna talk about it, we're gonna nerd out about it, and we're just gonna get hyped for the Horror Nights season. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you nerds in the fog!